the roll.
Ms. Smiley Robertson.
Here.
Mr. Putoff.
Here.
Mr. Sextro.
Here.
Mr. Burke.
Here.
Ms. McDaniel. Here. Mr. Albrecht.
Here.
The first thing we have. The first thing we have is we're going to swear in our police officer, Caleb Kaminsky. He'll come forward.
I, Caleb Kaminsky,
Do solemnly swear that I will support and obey the Constitution of the United States of America,
do solemnly swear that I will support and obey the Constitution of the United States of America
and the state of Ohio,
and the state of Ohio,
and that I will in all respects observe the provisions of the Charter and ordinances of the Village of Evendale, Ohio,
and that I will in all respects observe the provisions of the Charter and ordinances of the Village of Evendale,
and will faithfully discharge the duties of police officer to the best of my ability.
and will faithfully discharge the duties of a police officer to the best of my abilities. Thank you, sir.
Does anybody want to introduce?
My family, well, so this is my wife and my son, CJ. So my wife, Joni, my son, CJ. That's my daughter, Kaylee. And my father, Robert, and my mom, Sherry, and my mother-in-law, Christina. Very good. Thank you.
She's got a pen.
Your wife didn't bad case too?
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Welcome.
Good luck. Good luck.
Good luck. Get here on time. Ow.
Welcome.
Okay. Getting younger and younger looking.
Yeah. Driver's license. Okay, we're down to the consent calendar, and the first question is, the minutes have been previously distributed of the prior meeting. Are there any additions, corrections, or changes? May I have a motion to accept the minutes?
A motion to accept the minutes, Cesar?
Second?
Mr. Burke.
Yes.
Mr. Sextro.
Yes.
Ms. Smiley Robertson.
Yes.
Mr. Putoff.
Yes.
Ms. McDaniel.
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht.
Yes.
Okay, the minutes are accepted. Next is the Finance Committee report. Councilman Albrecht.
Yeah, Mayor, we had another good month last month in February. Total receipts were a little over $1 million, but exceeded 2021 by right around $40,000. Year-to-date, receipts are about $150,000 over last year. Hopefully, this trend continues. Yet to be seen, but it's certainly a good sign. We were a little short month over month on earnings versus our revenue versus expenses. That was primarily due to the Motrin purchase of about $187,000. So that took a little bite out of
Just a little.
budget. That's it for finance. Gorman Farm, the summer camps are sold out already. So the openings went very fast, which is a good sign that they're getting back to normal and everybody's feeling more comfortable going to the camps. FFA Leadership Night was held on March 10th at the Soil and Stars Education Center. good sign that that building, with the rehab and everything, it's now being used. However, it's my understanding that the doors are not in yet. So privacy is a little bit of an issue, but at least they're able to use it in some limited manner. Rec Department, we continue to advertise for a part-time facility maintenance position. So if anybody knows of someone who would be interested, please contact the Rec Department. The vaccine clinics continue to be held monthly. I think at our meeting it was discussed that probably April will be the last meeting, just because of the downturn in the amount, and Carolyn, probably will report on just the actual numbers, but the need, and the last time I think there was about 5 people that showed up, and so April will probably be the last time we do that.
I was on a Hamilton County Public Health annual meeting today on a call, and they're very pleased with where Hamilton County is in particular, and where Ohio is in general. The whole state is almost all green, with the exception of down along the river. There's some parts that are still yellow, but they're pretty well pleased.
Good for everybody. Congratulations, there were 3 youth basketball teams that won their league tournaments. It's always a great time. And the meet and greet had a Mardi Gras dinner, 56 attended a couple weeks ago. The service department, as I mentioned, the mow trim has now been delivered, and the cruiser will be putting it into service as we enter the summer months. The snow and ice event, we used on February 3rd and 4th about 425 tons of ice, or salt, to combat the ice, which took a big bite. We were a little worried, or at least it was discussed that, last weekend's threat of snow turned out to be really nothing. So we weathered this winter, although years prior, it seemed like we had a surplus that we weren't worried about going into next year, but we're going to have to get the bins refilled this year, primarily due to that February ice storm. The Griffin Pond Fountain, working with Duke to, it is on. It's only on.
Very nice. It's running.
And again, I've been mentioning this the last few months, Recycle Day or Shred Day, May 7th, 8 to 12. Same setup as years prior. However, we have the additional service of that they're going to be accepting tires now, which they have not in the past. Yeah. So James has arranged for somebody to come and collect the tires, and so anybody who has those sitting in the backyard or laying around, let's get rid of the tires like everything else.
Or in the Cultural Arts Center.
Or in the Cultural Arts Center. I did want to mention, we discussed it, and I asked James at our meeting, but I think it's hitting all the departments, is the increase in gas. And I asked James to run a little report, just trying to project what additional costs we're looking at. Right now, just for his department, we're looking at probably about $30,000 over last year as far as additional gas. I'm sure it's hitting police, certainly fire. This is for everybody? All right, so we're looking at $30,000 more than last year. So we're going to monitor it, see where we are.
Now, is that for the whole year, or is that up to the end of
That's for the
March?
whole year, projected for the whole year.
Or estimate for the whole year?
Obviously, I mean, predicting of where gas pricing, the diesel prices are going to go. What we did is we have the bills up till, I think the last one was March 2nd. And what we did was tried to take what our usage is and then project a base rate through the rest of the year based upon that usage. So that's a projection that we'll continue to update monthly as we get additional bills. By us doing the bulk purchasing, the diesel and the fuel, we actually realize about 17, 18 cents differential on unleaded gas versus what you see at the pump, and somewhere in around 30 to 35 cents difference in the diesel price. So we basically tried to project based upon the Ohio average by week. I found a website that projects out the weekly price to it, and so we just kind of looked at the differential. trying to estimate how much we thought we would use for the rest of the year. It's going to be a guess.
I was going to say, if you can
It's going to be a
predict,
guess, I mean.
if you can predict the price of gas for the rest of the
Right,
year.
but I mean, at least we can
Pretty good.
continue monthly, we can kind of update this, we can then kind of see by the time we get to June or July, we should have a pretty good handle on where we're going to be going with this, unless just prices jump all over the place again.
Because gas, I was paying $4.60 a gallon in Florida.
Yeah, I noticed coming in, it was $3.99 at Speedway for unleaded and $4.99 for diesel. We hit our last fill-up of tanks hit right before that jump, so we don't see as much. We know it's coming. So what I did was take today's prices, what they listed as today's quote, and projected that out so that I have at least a baseline there, but we'll see.
James, you use more in the summertime, percentage-wise?
It varies. I mean, both police and service will use more of the gasoline during the summer. I don't use as many of the dump trucks, obviously. But it's actually where we can kind of see the jump at the salt dome bins is usually when the fire department has to fill up the tower truck or the pumper. Usually that's when we see an increase in the diesel number because, like I said, most of my vehicles that need diesel, we have used the one behind my building, but that's diesel only. And then, so most of the diesel fuel that's being used at the salt dome is fire. We will use it on occasions, especially during salt removal operations because we're right there. But for the most part, that's where we'll see that. But gasoline obviously will jump, and it fluctuates. Just depends on what jobs we're doing and how much activity we got going on. We also added, I think, last year, Gorman Farms vehicles, at least they're gasoline vehicles, I believe. So not a big jump, but there was some additional that came from them. But
We
they
allow
don't do a
them to
lot.
fill up, but they get charged out of their allotment from the village.
Yeah, so what we've done is that last year, I think we spent roughly 68,000.
72,000 last year. Projection is that same usage this year, based on James's crystal ball, it'd be about 102,000.
Yeah, so Kathy has a line item for the salt dome tanks. She has $70,000 in the PO for that right now. I have an additional 15 for our tank that's at the shop. So we have about 85,000, so we have about a 17,000 differential based upon the projection. But again, that's something we can continue to track this by as we get further statements, and then that way we can at least see where we're heading as we get further along in the summer.
Okay, any questions? Anything else?
Nothing further.
Okay. Next, we will have Fire and Police and Councilperson Smiley Robinson.
Okay, let me first start with the fire department. We interviewed 4 candidates last night. Actually, it was a hiring committee that interviewed 4 candidates last night. And I want to, and even though the overall pool of candidates were down, the quality of candidates that came before hiring last night was still excellent. We will have a hiring ordinance at the April meeting, and then we're going to have establish our list we're carrying 2 of the 4 remaining candidates forward on our list. The chili lunch is back in pre-COVID format this year. It will be June 15th. There'll be more to come. There'll be some different programming going on then, but just wanted to have everybody at this point mark their calendars. It's June 15th for the chili luncheon. The shipping container that we've been using is no longer needed and will be going up for auction. Also, if you remember, we got new EMS software last year. We're going to need to get new fire software. We're being offered software from the same vendor at a price that is not acceptable to us, so we're still searching for fire software, but the current program we use will be obsolete by the end of the year, so we will have to get new software for that. And if you notice that there are different color bands around fire hydrants this year, it has to do with the amount of water flow that'll come out of that hydrant. It's just not a mistake or not an aesthetic thing, if you will. And as far as the fireworks are concerned, I'm not sure where we are as far as whether we need to opt out of that or not, but I think we discussed at the last meeting that there had been a commission put together to study this for the state of Ohio, to give recommendations to the state fire marshal, which we were going to base probably what our decision off of, and as of last week, they had not met, so.
So in Evendale, the status quo is still the same?
It's still no fireworks.
No fireworks.
No fireworks.
Chief Houck had sent us that video of the U-Haul that went off in the neighborhood. That was
Yes.
That was from the,
Pardon? Oh, he hasn't.
We have it.
We have it.
it was.
He really hasn't.
I think if council desires after July 1st to maintain the ban on fireworks in the village, we will have to adopt
Oh, yes.
legislation to do that.
I agree.
Okay.
But until then, it's status quo.
The law isn't in effect until July 1 to begin with.
And if you
We
didn't
should plan on doing
see,
that in June, then.
yeah, if you didn't see that video of the trailer blowing up with fireworks, you've got to think about whether you'd want to be have fireworks personally around your house. I mean, it is something
Uncontrollable.
uncontrollable.
We've had a couple in my previous department, just car trunk loads,
Yeah.
load up in the trunk. And they have chemicals that are so strong, if you hit them with water, it heats the water into hydrogen, which is extremely flammable, where hydrogen gas is burnt, and oxygen, which accelerates, like hydrogen release will help with accelerate. So that's how hot it burns. You can even add water to it. It just makes the problem that much.
Yeah, and on the video, they're yelling, "Get the hose, get the hose." There's no way you could control that with anything.
They were all on their knees, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it goes on for a half an hour.
Okay. So moving on to the police department, we're in the process of having interviewed applicants. I think we have a hiring committee meeting scheduled in April to interview candidates for the police officer, and a reminder to all of council, on April 6th, we will be doing the interviews for the police chief on that date. We have an ordinance for some new mayor's court software, and I think that's all for police at this point. And cultural arts, just a little review of February. Wine tasting had a great turnout, as usual. 60% of the attendees were Evendale residents. The Women of Lockerbie performances were held, I believe, the first weekend in March at the Bell Tower Arts Pavilion. And also, the Playhouse in the Park had the Hare and the Tortoise play as well. So upcoming events are that Art Ventures. Art Ventures was sold out in February. Went to do some glass blowing, and everyone had a really good time there. Art Ventures for this month will occur this Saturday. As of last week, there were still 2 spaces open. It's to the William Howard Taft House, and lunch, I believe, is at Blue Ash Chili afterwards. So there are multiple camps being offered in cultural arts. Playhouse in the Park is going to be doing 7 weeks of camp, and There'll also be a circus camp, a theater camp, and a ukulele camp, if you can believe that. So please sign up if you're interested. Wine tasting was held this past weekend, so I have no news as to when April's wine tasting event will be. The other thing I should bring to council's attention is that we've been getting a lot of requests for events to be held at the Bell Tower Arts Pavilion. We have not been advertising, it's being done word of mouth. So that's something that we're going to have to look more closely on as far as our procedures for doing that, because that happened to us a little bit sooner than we expected that would occur. And also, the new electronic shades for the Arts Pavilion have been ordered, but it'll take a month to 6 weeks to get here. And that's cultural arts. Moving on to building, planning, and zoning. Welcome to Mark Elmer, who's here. And he joined us.
His first council meeting.
First council meeting, first committee meeting. Welcome, Mark. And he's been working on, because there was a little bit of time gap between when Andrew left and Mark came, we're working on clearing out the permits. I think we discussed temporary permits that were going on, we got emails about this at the Marathon Station. The temporary permit for the Bengals gear has expired, and we're having ongoing issues that we're trying to work through as far as the food truck at that location. I think that's our report.
Any questions,
I do
comments?
Go ahead.
Carolyn, you mentioned the wine tasting, how successful that's been. Has your committee discussed restructuring sign-up? Because there's a lot of Evendale residents that are getting locked out or unable to attend because of non-residents signing up so quickly. I think with the waiting list and where it's so quickly filling up and it's becoming so popular month after month.
My understanding is that this last one was a larger percentage of residents than in the past. And I think there's two different leaders of the wine groups, and my understanding is the one group tends to be more residents, and the other one tends to be probably a little more non-residents. So it's something that we've discussed in committee, in the Cultural Arts Committee, but we haven't made any decisions on it.
I think my take on it is that there's some that even one of the leaders are kind of inviting some friends, and it becomes more of a little social event. And they're bringing in people from outside the village, and there's people within the village that really want to participate and enjoy the evening. So.
Okay, I will take that back. We'll discuss it in committee. I think you've been discussing it in the commission,
right? Correct.
We have not discussed it to that level of detail in the committee, but we will now. So.
And also, just to add to cultural arts, we've also been discussing the finalization of the rental agreements or agreement that's necessary for the Bell Tower Arts Pavilion. And we also discussed at some point that probably should go to Tim to make sure that it's where it needs to be.
Yeah.
But that discussion is ongoing in the Cultural Arts Commission.
Well, I think just to be sure that Susan Gordy knows about the complaints about the wine tasting thing. And
right, because we had not discussed it that way in the committee meeting. Just that the event was successful because it was being sold out. But we'll certainly discuss it.
And I think that's the reason this last time she did report to us the increase in residents, because we had discussed it in the Cultural Arts Commission.
Okay.
But you're right, it wasn't discussed in that way in our committee meeting. Okay. Griffin Farm, I'd like to
go ahead.
Shift into. We had a volunteer day. A few of us were up there doing a few things this past weekend, and got some stuff done. We have another one planned. Do you have the date on that?
April 30th.
April 30th, and we were hoping to do some planning in that front garden area next to the parking lot, and probably continue to do some cleanup of the honeysuckle along the creek bed, which gives it a better look from the street. And I'm glad to hear that we got the fountain running up there to recirculate that water in the pond.
Yeah. And we'll get the getting more fish in the pond.
Yeah, the committee's also discussing some other things about the pond as far as rehabbing it to make it as natural as possible, and support life, in the pond, because with the way the pond's set up, it's basically a basin that catches runoff water. And so we're trying to make sure that we talk to the right people to figure out what the best way to make that a viable pond
Okay.
moving forward is.
And I'd like to be involved in those discussions.
That's our report.
Okay. No other comments? Okay, I have a few. Number one, I'd like to advise council that on April the 5th, which is our pre-council meeting nights, we are going to have a special council meeting on the Abrams complaint that has been filed before us. This has gone on and fiddled around, and we're setting a date, and either they show up or they don't show up. And we're doing that at 5 o'clock, and we're taking your committee meeting probably, maybe you want to start 15 minutes early, 4:45. And then we'll have the council meeting at 5 o'clock. Council meeting's only going to last a half an hour. And then by 5:45, we should be ready for the police and fire committee. Does that sound okay?
That's
It only
fine.
gives you 15 minutes.
5 o'clock's tough, but
We're talking sub-council, right?
Please.
We'll start at 4:15. Are you okay are you okay, Tom?
Yeah,
We
4:15.
can start
on
at
the 5th.
4:15.
You have problems at 5 o'clock?
well, 5 o'clock's when I get off work in Deer Park, but I can try to leave early that day.
Okay. Okay. Because we're going to notify, and through our clerk, an official notification to the attorney that that's the time of the place, and
The attorney's already got the information. I'm going to work with Barb to get an official notice to be sent by her as the clerk of council to Sergeant Abrams,
okay.
who should already know it if his attorney has done his job.
Okay. But this has been on the agenda now for several months, and it's time to get ready.
Mayor, you would like us there by 4:15 for the finance rec service?
That's, yeah.
Yeah,
On the 5th, okay.
4:15 for finance,
And police and fire will start at 5:30.
yes.
5:45.
Make it 5:45.
5:45.
5:45 is our
That'll give us 45.
That'll give you an extra 15 minutes if you need it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Also want to bring your attention and to the village. There are 2 bills filed in the legislature that are having hearings that will, if passed, they will be detrimental to the village. One is it would preempt any municipality from controlling Airbnbs. You'd have to let them happen anytime, any place, anywhere. And I know, or perhaps some of you don't remember the problems we had with that before, and I don't believe there's a surge for Airbnbs in the village at this time. And so that's number 1 on the agenda, or on the list. Number 2 is legislation that would prohibit the tax commissioner from sending out a notice of failure to file a tax return in the event that the return did not come in on time, and that would be whether you had to pay taxes or not to pay taxes, and those are sent out that way. If you file a tax return the previous year, they're sent out anyway. So currently there's a $150 fine for failing to file a return. That would be, and actually, if the return, usually people forget. And if that return is filed anyway, we just forget the $150. But this would reduce that fine to $50 or something like that. We have written letters to the chairman of the committees in the House. We've alerted our council, or our state rep here in Ohio about our opposition to it, and she seems to be opposed to it also. And I have also notified our senator about our opposition to these two bills, and we have written letters of opposition. And it may be that David Elmer is willing to go to Columbus and testify about the bills. So just so you should be aware of that situation. I hope you've all noticed that the pavilion wall is complete over the weekend or over the last week. Maybe, well, I haven't gone a while, maybe a couple weeks ago. But I think it's beautiful. It's great. It's great. Lights are in? Oh. I did notice those the other night when I went home. Lights are on, and they look great. They look great. The 4th of July will be back. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. In full form for everyone. And so there's really no need to get those fireworks personally. Okay? We also now have a drone that is in possession of the village, and several police officers, I think, are being trained on the use of the drone. Am I correct?
You are correct in the fact that we are getting trained and licensed. However, we still have to pick each drone up.
Oh, okay. And when will that occur?
Unfortunately, we found out very early yesterday morning that the gentleman who owns the company suffered a heart attack. So we are on plan B. Fortunately, it's not fatal, but we move back a couple weeks.
Okay. With that, whatever it is,
We will have it.
by the 4th of July. That's good to know. Also, I don't know whether you've seen them or not, but these are drawings of the view of the compound that Duke is going to build on Glendale Milford Road up the hill. If these are pictures, has everybody seen them?
No.
No? Send them down and send them around. See what you think of them. The Planning Commission felt they were very good, and it's the product of a good bit of negotiation between David Elmer and myself and Duke to get them to agree and not put in a plain pipe rack situation. I attended the quarterly meeting of the Intercommunity Cable Regulatory Commission. For 2021, they had a 3% drop in revenue because of cable cutters, and every time a cable cutter occurs or people go off, we lose that revenue to the cable television, or to the ICRC. And for 2022, they're predicting another 3% cut. Their finances are in good shape right now, but the question is how long that can last. Also, I've been alerted that mailbox theft is increasing. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about that, Chief. I think it's really a problem.
We have, I think, taken 5 reports, fraud reports recently, including former Mayor Apking, and we are confident that he dropped his check off in the blue outdoor box at Sharonville, and that his check was retrieved from there. We have 2 of them that we know were taken from outside mailboxes, one on, I believe, on Glendale Milford and one on Britton. Unfortunately, we also know we've also had 2 other complaints come in wherein their checks were what we call washed, and they were all cashed up in Toledo, Ohio, and we have found out that the common factor is that they have PNC bank accounts. So we have 2 competing thefts going on, or issues. Number one is we know that they're stealing from mailboxes, so I caution everybody about putting that flag up and putting a personal check in there. And basically, a check wash is when they take it and they bleach it out, scrape it, and they put their own amount, their own signature, and they go cash it. And again, we are also working with the postal inspectors to find out what's going on with the common factor of the PNC bank accounts.
Okay, when
Any
you said-
questions, comments?
Yes, question. When you said blue boxes, are you talking about the postal services
Yeah.
boxes?
Yes.
And you think they robbed the guy of his keys? or-
Yes, we got I don't know how else, an intelligence bulletin, things that we share amongst ourselves from North College Hill, wherein one of their drivers was robbed at gunpoint, and they took the key set, which allows entry into those blue mailboxes. So, yes, and my understanding is that those are universal.
Hey, Chief, I heard the new rule of thumb on the raising the flag on the mailbox is not to raise it, because that's a flag that there's mail in there. Because our mailman even says, we'll check whether it's up or not. That's what I've heard is the new protocol is not to put it up.
I think it's sound advice, and
Yeah.
it's been probably 6 weeks ago that, maybe even longer, cold weather that we had. We know that a lady was following the mailman and on Monet, and somebody's Ring camera got her. Unfortunately, it was too far away to make any identification. So,
On Channel 9, John Matarese, he mentioned that this morning on mail theft. He said, never put your mail in at night.
Yeah.
well, Stenberg will tell you, don't trust the media.
Well, one thing is, get your mail out of the mailbox every day.
Quickly.
Quickly.
As you can. And go into, Sharonville has a 24-hour lobby that you can
Yeah.
go in and.
If you got checks, take them into the lobby and mail them there. Okay. Any questions? That's all I have. Okay, let's go to our ordinances. We've got a long list tonight of 3. First ordinance is ordinance 22-17, and I'd like permission to read it by title only.
So moved.
Second,
Ms. Smiley Robertson?
Yes.
Mr. Sextro?
yes.
Mr. Putoff?
Yes.
Mr. Burke? Yes. Ms. McDaniel?
yes,
Mr. Olbrink?
Yes.
An ordinance approving an additional appropriation in the court computer fund and declaring it as an emergency. Are you all familiar with this, what that is? I'd like a motion to suspend the second and third reading of the ordinance.
So moved.
Second,
Mr. Olbrink?
Yes.
Mr. Sextro?
yes.
Ms. McDaniel?
yes,
Ms. Smiley Robertson?
Yes.
Mr. Putoff?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Now I'd like a motion to adopt the emergency clause of the ordinance.
So moved.
Ms. Smiley Robertson?
Yes.
Mr. Burke? Yes. Mr. Olbrink?
Yes.
Ms. McDaniel?
yes,
Mr. Sextro?
Yes.
Mr. Putoff?
Yes.
Now I need a motion to adopt the ordinance as an emergency.
so moved,
Second,
Mr. Putoff?
Yes.
Mr. Sextro?
yes.
Mr. Burke? Ms. McDaniel?
yes,
Mr. Olbrink?
Yes.
Ms. Smiley Robertson?
Yes.
I now declare ordinance 22-17 adopted as an emergency. Next is ordinance 22-18. I'd like permission to read it by title only.
Second?
Mr. Burke? Ms. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht?
Yes.
Ms. Smiley Robertson?
Yes.
Mr. Sextro?
Yes.
Mr. Putoff?
Yes.
An ordinance making an additional budget appropriation for the ARPA fund for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2022, and declaring it as an emergency. Motion to suspend the second. Motion. Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Mr. Burke? Yes. Mr. Albrecht?
Yes.
Too
Ms.
quick.
McDaniel?
Yes.
Ms. Smiley Robertson?
Yes.
Mr. Sextro?
Yes.
Mr. Putoff?
Yes.
Now can I have a motion to adopt the emergency clause of the ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Sextro?
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht?
Yes.
Ms. McDaniel?
Yes.
Ms. Smiley Robertson?
Yes.
Mr. Putoff?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Now can I have a motion to adopt the ordinance as an emergency?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Albrecht?
Yes.
Mr. Sextro?
Yes.
Ms. McDaniel?
Yes.
Ms. Smiley Robertson?
Yes.
Mr. Putoff?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
I now declare ordinance 22-18 adopted as an emergency. Next is ordinance 22-19, and I'd like permission to read it by title only.
So moved.
Second?
Ms. Smiley Robertson?
Yes.
Ms. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht?
Yes.
Mr. Sextro?
Yes.
Mr. Putoff?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
An ordinance authorizing the payment of amounts due upon certain contracts requiring certification of availability of funds and declaring it as an emergency. Can I have a motion to suspend the second and third reading of the ordinance?
Second?
Mr. Burke? Yes. Ms. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht?
Yes.
Ms. Smiley Robertson?
Yes.
Mr. Sextro?
Yes.
Mr. Putoff?
Yes.
Now I need a motion to adopt the emergency clause of the ordinance.
Second.
Mr. Burke? Mr. Sextro?
Yes.
Mr. Putoff?
Yes.
Ms. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht?
Yes.
Ms. Smiley Robertson?
Yes.
Now I need a motion to adopt the ordinance as an emergency.
So moved.
Second?
Ms. Smiley Robertson?
Yes.
Ms. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht?
Yes.
Mr. Sextro?
Yes.
Mr. Putoff?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
I now declare ordinance 22-19 adopted as an emergency. That's the end of the agenda. Is there anything else for the good of the order to come before council tonight? If not, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Sextro?
Yes.
Ms. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht?
Yes.
Mr. Burke? Ms. Smiley Robertson?
Yes.
Mr. Putoff?
Yes.
Adjourn.